All right, are we there? There we are. Welcome, everybody. I'll call this meeting of the Standing Committee on Planning, Transportation, and Environment to order. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Councillor Deal is in the chair. Councillor Louis is not in the chamber. Councillor Stevenson is on a leave of absence for civic business. Mayor Robinson is not in the chamber. Councillor Jang? Here. Councillor Reimer? Here. Councillor Meigs? Here. Councillor Ball is not in the chamber. Councillor Carr? Here. Councillor Affleck? Here. And Councillor De Genova. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we begin, I have an announcement. We are as fashionably dressed as we are today for a reason. Today is the third annual Orange Shirt Day. This is a special day that honors residential school survivors. September 30th date was chosen because it's the time of year when children are taken from their homes to residential schools, and it's also an opportunity to set the stage for anti-racism and anti-bullying policies for the coming school year. Orange Shirt Day is also an opportunity for First Nations, local governments, schools, and communities to come together in the spirit of reconciliation and hope for generations of children to come. People wear orange shirts in recognition of former students' experiences within the Indian residential schools and to commit to ongoing reconciliation. And I wanted to thank Councillor Reimer and all of our staff and everybody here at City Hall for the many, many efforts that have been made on becoming the City of Reconciliation. Moving on to the consent items, as chair of the meeting, I'm suggesting that since there are no presentations or speakers for items 1, 2, 3, or 4, that we adopt the recommendations collectively in a single motion. Does anyone wish to hold any of the reports? Councillor Carr. Hang on a second. Just going to get the button here. Okay, report 3. All right. Would somebody like to move? Yes, Councillor Affleck.
Sorry, so that was 3 you did. I'll hold back 2 for separate vote, and then 3 I have a conflict of interest.
3 had conflicts, okay. Thank you. All right, so would somebody like to move items 1 and 4? Okay, and do we have we don't need a seconder. All in favor, any opposed? 1 and 4 are passed on consent. Thank you very much. We'll now go on to item number 2, held back by Councillor Affleck. Councillor Affleck, to the year of 2016 license and service fee increases. Do you want to hit your button?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to separate vote. If we could also sever it, A, B, C, and D and E, and just we'll either separate out D and then vote separately. I appreciate that. So A, B, C, E as a block, and then D separately.
D separately, and is that all you pulled it for?
Yeah, that's it.
Did you want to tell us about why you're going to vote the way you're going to vote?
Inflationary increases above and beyond what I think is necessary.
Okay. Anybody else to this item? I see no one else on the speakers list, so I will move would someone like to move? Sorry. Oh, all right. Well, you've got the not working thing.
Board increases, which were also 2%. Now, if Councillor Affleck could indicate to me whether he opposes those as well, that'd be interesting.
Okay, Councillor Meigs has asked a question. We don't do direct question and answer, but if Councillor Affleck chooses to answer, he certainly has not used his 5 minutes. He does not choose to answer that question. Thank you, Councillor Meigs. Councillor Carr.
Yes, apropos of the comments made by Councillor Affleck around inflationary increases, I just have a question to ask of staff, and that is whether these inflationary increases that are being proposed in the license and service fee increases are actually covering all the increases in our costs.
Do we have someone from staff who can answer that question? Welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, Teresa Hartman, Acting General Manager for Community Services. The increase in fees is a standard formula and it covers multiple departments, so it should cover all of the costs, but we didn't raise it based on looking at our own costs, but rather a standard inflationary cost.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just, maybe Ms. Impey actually could expand on that, because I'm just remembering that in the economic outlook, there was a comment made in that report which said that the general city costs are not necessarily covered by the kinds of tax increases that we put forward. So I'm just wondering about this, if the same is true for the service fee increases.
Yeah, Councillor. One thing I would want to remind you of on the fees is we do have a corporate fee review initiative that's taking place. I think we mentioned that also in the Outlook. Specifically, we're starting with our planning development area and looking at our cost structure, which we look at sort of periodically after on a several year rolling basis, and then on the interim years we tend to use inflation as just as the increase in those middle years. So we are in the process of doing that fee review. It'll take us a couple of years to work our way through all of the fees, but we are starting on the planning and development fees, and that work's underway right now. So the other groups are going with the standard inflation rate. We have a few or groups that are more market-driven rates, and so they wouldn't necessarily follow standard inflation. They may have other drivers of their rates. So sometimes you'll see ones that are slightly different from the general inflation.
Okay. And the general inflation rate, Ms. Impey, is that intended to try and cover the increased costs that the city is bearing because of inflation?
It is intended to cover those costs, and when we talk in the outlook, we know that in our some of our costs are growing faster than inflation, whether they're third-party costs or our own wages, et cetera. And so we do look, though, our financial guideline is to try and increase our rates at an inflationary level. And so we look at productivity and technology and other things that we can do to kind of adjust our cost structure to try and stay within that inflationary level. And when we do the bigger review, that's when we'll be able to determine whether that's been sufficient over those interim years. And we would come back to you to say that we have to, based on the cost structure and all that analysis, we'll come back with some recommended fee changes based on the cost structure.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Are those all your questions, Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see anyone else on the queue. We'll move to a vote. We will use the voting queue because we did debate this. So we will move to a vote on A, B, and C combined. And E, thank you. A, B, C, and E combined. And do I have everybody? Okay. All right, and that passes 5-2 with Councillors Affleck and DeGenova in opposition. We'll now move on to item D. So please vote on item D. Okay. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We have finished this item. So we're now on to item number 3. The garbage container license program. Councillor Affleck, you have to remove yourself due to conflict of interest. And you just state your conflict of interest, please. Okay, thank you. Councillor Carr, you pulled this item. So if you wanted to put yourself on the queue. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, my first question has to do with the point made on page 3, where there is going to be a billing, or where it's stated there's been billing where there's been problems with excess waste, and the billing has been to the property owner. And I'm just questioning why it's the property owner versus the private commercial waste hauling company that's being billed.
The containers are there on behalf of the owner, and it's their job to control them.
It's their job to control them.
Their job to
Okay.
control them, that's right.
Okay. So when we're going this, Mr. Seamus, when we're undergoing this review of with our inspectors, and we're noticing all these problems, the graffiti, the holes in the bins, the overflow, et cetera, that sort of unkempt nature of some of these bins, then is it always landing on the property owner rather than the private waste hauling company to remedy the problem?
If it's a situation where there's a problem with the container, if the container has holes, it's the hauler that has to replace the container.
Right.
So there was a split. If it's an abandoned waste issue on that area where the property is, it's the property owner's responsibility. If it is the state of the container, it's the hauler's responsibility.
Got it.
So if the container is really bad, we impound it.
Right.
And take it away and tell them they have to put a new one in.
Right. Okay. Have we had to do that?
Yeah, we've had to do that many times, yeah.
Wow. All right. And in terms of areas where there's no observable containers, I've had citizens come to me to say there's a real problem with dumping. One specific case I raised in an inquiry at this council table was the southeast lane next to 41st and Main.
Right.
And I had a resident walk me through there and say regularly there is household garbage, and but large items too, like lots of waste
Mattresses,
along.
couches, that kind of thing.
Exactly, yes. But I saw, baby carriages,
Councillor Carr, this really is about the fees, and so if we can
no, I'm just wondering, yes.
focus a little bit.
True enough, but in the cases where they are talking about expanding in this report, the placement of containers, and so, in terms of those places, is our sort of more proactive program, which I'm really enjoying in this report, that instead of being reactive, we're moving to more proactive. Is there an attempt to look at spots where those kinds of containers might be needed?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the challenges that we've had over the past couple of years, is that one person will drop one thing and then it expands and expands, people drop more and more
Right.
things. So we want to be more proactive and get out there as soon as we can,
Right.
clean up the mess, or deal with, if it's a property issue, deal with the property
Right.
owner. Yeah.
Right. Good. Happy to see, as I say, the expansion of the program into more proactive work. Yeah. I'm prepared. Oh, there's other people.
Thank you very much. Councillor DiGenova.
Thanks so much. I just have a few questions. First of all, on the fee increase for container management, the proposal for large containers of $41.50 and small containers for $14.
Correct.
I'm just wondering if that's in line with other municipalities in Metro Vancouver. Our increases, do you have any numbers on that?
I don't have any numbers on other municipalities. I do know, though, that we have a significantly larger number of containers in the public realm than other municipalities do.
Okay, and then another question I had, and it's almost it follows up to some of Councillor Carr's questions, locking mechanisms on the containers. So like we hear from small business owners, I've heard from small business owners at least, that other people are using their containers. And I've said, are they adequately locked? So do we have any regulations around that the
Yes.
containers must be locked?
They must be
And
locked,
in the increased fees for containers, I see that it's quite a jump over about $50 here. Is there any increased locking mechanism on these containers? Anything we're offering there?
There's the haulers are the ones that have to install the locks. One of the problems that we've had is that some cases, a key for the lock of a container gets distributed around the community, and a number of people actually go in and open the container, remove the lock, and put their garbage in. So what we're trying to do now is work directly with the haulers to make sure that they're replacing the locks on a regular basis, so we don't have those ongoing problems. But that is one of the things we target with those containers. They do have to be locked. They do have to be properly managed. So.
Okay, I suppose that it's just a thought that if people are paying a greater fee for, they expect increased service, then there would also be sort of means of protection to make sure that those garbage containers are being used in the appropriate manner.
So maybe I'll just step back one step and then end up where you, as Mr. Seamus said, that we've got significantly more containers on city property than other municipalities. So our preference, our desire is always to have these containers on private property built into the developments. So wherever possible, these containers are located on the private property associated with the business. In cases where they simply can't fit those containers, then we allow them to be on private property, but then we have rules and expectations about the upkeep of those containers that are on private property. One of those expectations is they be secured and they're locked, and so between the property owner and the hauler, their responsibility is to maintain that the containers are properly secured, that it's kept clean around the containers, those sorts of things. So those are the conditions for those containers to be present on city property. That's our expectation of how they're maintained.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Reimer. You can do it. I know you can.
I'm sorry. Containers actually aren't what's so funny. I'm sorry. When I read this report,
being on the Metro Committee and spending much time here on the issue of waste, waste management, recycling, diversion, and all the associated technologies, I had a premonition that it would lead to this because it does explore but not fully engage people in this subject around containers. So I was thinking it might be helpful for council to have a memo that explains the container program. I think it's been, I'm not even sure since Councillor Carr's been on, we've had a full briefing on the container program. So it is, per Councillor DeGenova's comments, it's very challenging to correlate to another municipality because hosting the regional downtown creates additional container issues that there might be some sliver of in other places, but we certainly have, in terms of the density of containers, by far the largest challenges, and of course the oldest alleys, so that means that the two challenges together create all sorts of new and exciting problems. So perhaps we could get a memo, and then if that triggers a desire for greater briefing, we might go in that direction over time.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Okay, those are all of our comments or questions. So would someone like to move the recommendations? Any debate? I don't see anyone on the queue, so let's go to the vote. There we go. Come on. Conflict. Okay, and votes. So we have all in favor, none opposed, so that passes unanimously. That concludes the standing committee portion of this meeting. We'll convene in regular council with Mayor Robertson in that chair, not the chair.
Thanks, and we will now convene a regular council to deal with the recommendations and actions from today's standing committee on planning, transportation, and environment meeting. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mayor Robertson is in the chair. Councillor Deal. Councillor Deal. Councillor Louis. Councillor Stevenson is on leave of absence. Councillor Jang. Councillor Reimer. Councillor Meggs. Councillor Ball is not in the chamber. Councillor Carr. Councillor Affleck is not in the chamber. Councillor DeGenova. You have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we need a motion to adopt today's standing committee's recommendations. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Carr will second. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. And we need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Deal, Councillor Jang seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed to adjournment? That carries. This meeting is adjourned, and we will meet in